of that project are in the credit enhancement agreement that they worked out.
Well, why is it not just part of the TIF? Why does it have to be part of a credit enhancement agreement?
Well, remember that in most cases, basically what happens is the credit enhancement agreement is the loan legally binding document. So that's why it isn't just only in the proposal. In that the parties felt the project is of a certain size that we want to recap what the company is going to do and the allocation that they're going to get back from us in a credit enhancement agreement. We want to make sure that that is executed and signed off.
So the TIF revenues are paying for that. The developer's not paying for that.
The TIF revenues come from the developer for this. The TIF revenues, again, remember the TIF revenues are the property taxes.
Right, and they go into the TIF account.
That's correct.
But the credit enhancement agreement gives money from that TIF account back to the developer.
The credit enhancement agreement, and forgive me, I'm trying to answer you correctly.
Right. I'm getting a little bit confused here because I'm trying to, because it almost sounds like the credit enhancement agreement is the TIF.
Right. No.
It is part of the TIF.
It is part of
calculation of it.
It's part of the TIF. The calculations come from that property tax, and the percentage is specified in that. And you have an agreement with the developer for X number of, X percentage of the property tax revenues generated from that.
It could be 0%.
Right.
It could be.
You know,
You don't have to approve a credit enhancement agreement.
if you think back to high customization, and again, really what you can do with a car, and I know that's a really basic, it might sound like a silly
Great
concept,
analogy.
but you can have so much customization that you're really going to need to do a lot of homework and a lot of thinking in terms of, what exactly is the project that they're proposing. Do we have projects that we want to execute? If so, what are they? Maybe we don't have any projects that we want to execute. If the company goes to any town and proposes a TIF, does that mean that the town has to pursue it? Not really. That's up to the town. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you caught my interest when you started saying that this could take a lot of planning and thinking, and there's no doubt it can. This is
because you're the only ones that can determine.
Right, but I wanted to get to, are there any rules and regulations in the TIF money that can be expended on just the administration portion of conducting these programs, these TIF programs?
Yes.
What's the limit? How much of the TIF can you put in, say, okay, that's as much you're going to get to plan out all this project that you've shown me you want to go into?
Well, in statute, the wording is reasonable administrative costs.
What's reasonable?
That is what the municipal officials are going to project and present to you in the program for that
What do you
district.
think is reasonable?
It
You've
varies,
seen a bunch of them. What's
well,
reasonable?
It varies per town. I mean, again, there are
What's
some
the
towns,
maximum you've seen?
I can't really, every town is different. I can't really give you a number. Remember, some towns, some cities have 2-3 people that work in the economic development office. Some towns don't have economic development staff. And let's say that there's only one staff person who's going to spend time administering the TIF. And it's up to the town to make that case to you, and we will get to see it in the draft. That would say, we think it's going to take 5 hours a week out of, Susie's time to administer the TIF district. It's going to cost X amount of dollars out of her salary.
Before you can approve a TIF, you have to see that allocation of money within the. Now
remember, all the numbers that you're going to see are going to be projections. Okay, they're going to be your best, your best municipal officials.
So there's no way to monitor
and
it
volunteers. Yeah, So that's why, again, the approval letter from the commissioner of my department will recap some of those projects and costs. But you know, if let's say $500,000 was said, it was projected at the time for a sewer upgrade. You know, if it's slightly different, again, it's your best. You know, it's the best guesstimate. Nobody's going to be held to $500,000 on a particular project. Yes, go ahead.
To try to offer some clarity to Gene's point, basically TIF money comes in, and my understanding is, or I'll ask you, we get TIF money, can we use it to pay for snow plowing of our roads?
I think that has been allowed in some districts, road maintenance, if it had to do...
No, nothing to do with the... We just want to plow all our roads.
No, it's general fund money.
No,
okay, so we can't do that.
You're
so,
circumventing the Constitution for, you know...
Right, so I didn't think you could.
Gene, I think he was going...
We keep going here.
Hold on a second.
So you can't do that. So I think everyone understood you couldn't use TIF money to plow the road. The person doing the wind power project is a large contractor. They're going to have roads to plow, they're going to have plow trucks, they're going to have equipment. Could we have a credit enhancement agreement with them that we take a portion of that money, we give it back to them and say, you go plow our roads?
I don't think I'm familiar with anything like that.
If you tie that to economic development, then yes, if you make the case to...
It's not really development.
It sounds like feasible.
Yeah, it's general fund. If you're really, you know, general fund monies, you know, it's just, in TIF statute, there's something that talks about, you know, not using TIF revenues for the general purpose of, you know, government. For example, can we use TIF monies to build a municipal office? You know.
Only if you're Scarborough.
That, again, in TIF statute, it says you can use monies for building, you know, the general purposes of government. Okay, and I also have a little section that there's a gentleman in the back that has a question, but then I'll go back to, I have a little section that specifically talks about unauthorized project costs, and it may be perhaps more tangible if I also take the time to read those 5 lines as well. So go ahead.
Under any circumstances, if a town enters into a TIF agreement, can any of that money be used to reduce individual taxpayers' property taxes?
Yes.
Directly towards the taxes.
We talked about that a few times.
Okay, yeah.
And it really bears repeating, is basically the money that you send to the general fund. Okay? The monies that are directed to the general fund, which as soon as that's done, you have to report the property, the equalized assessed value that generated those, you know, property taxes that then you're sending to the general fund. That is really the way that you know, you could get individual tax relief, which is, I think, is what you were asking for. Yes.
Can I go back to what Mike was going to respond originally to the getting the town, having the town's roads plowed? Somewhere along the line we were told that general maintenance was not allowed as an option. Is that what you were leading into, or what was your responsibility?
That's general fund money. That's general government cost, plowing the roads. You can't direct funds to... You're disadvantaging other communities, so to speak, that have to take that out of the general fund. And to take the money and to give direct taxpayer benefit, the only way to do that would be legally, without economic development being tied to that, would be just to let it flow to the general fund, and it would reduce the individual tax burden accordingly.
We have a fund here in town, we call the Ione House, and we're allowed to spend the interest on the amount of money there is on items that the town would not ordinarily be able to have by taxation.
Mm-hmm.
Is that similar?
That's an endowment. That's an
So isn't
endowment.
that a
This is
similar-
not an endowment. You're talking about sheltering something.
Right, but isn't it going to be the similar rules?
No.
You can't, well, it isn't something that we would normally do under taxation, like maintenance.
Yeah. You'd have to go, I mean, you're really getting into a fine general tax money. You cannot raise and appropriate general tax money for the benefit of a few. It's got to be for the town. So, I mean, you appropriate it. I mean, to TIF it, you're sheltering it, and you're sheltering it from reducing economic development, we'll say, for other people in the county, and paying that share of your county tax or whatever. So if you were just putting that back into general government purposes, you'd be disadvantaging every other community surrounding you. That's the premise. So, I mean, you're skirting an illegal issue there, and it possibly can be done. I mean, things are evolving. The reason I mentioned Scarborough is Scarborough built their town office, and that was the genesis for the law change many years ago on TIF. Scarborough's town office down there, that edifice down there, still looks brand new. It's probably 15, 20 years old now, but that was when they changed TIF laws, because they TIF'd and built that building.
But
That's
Mike, did
general
it
fund,
create any
general
jobs?
government purposes.
Did it create any jobs?
That's why they changed the law. It's exempt building. It doesn't create any tax revenue. That's general government purposes. That's why it cannot be used for that.
Right. That's why I'm thinking snow
the only
plowing
reason
is
I
an
just
economic
quipped and
development.
said Scarborough, because they were able to do it before the law evolved.
Maybe it would help if I sort of put it in these terms. TIF statute and our department rules, what you see in writing is it's going to be black and white. And then it's the part that you don't see in writing is the part that's open to interpretation. That's where attorneys and consultants come in. So, which is also part of why sometimes if somebody asks me a question, I can't answer it because either I know it but I don't remember, or it's something that I haven't come across before. And so what that would mean is that, the person on the other side of the phone would need to point me to the statute, tell me how they interpret the statute, and make their case. And then someone in my position will reach out and see historically what has been approved or not approved. And again, that's where the technical people come in, which is important that where there is opposed to one of the TIFs, before a company or a developer where you're going to bond and it's strictly for infrastructure. Again, it's important that there are technical people at both ends, because that's what they're going to be, particularly in the case of the consultant that you're retained for the town. He's going to be telling you, helping you decide what you can or cannot do, and tying it into the statute.
Do we have a copy of regulations that you have?
To Jean, I believe, TIF manual.
Yeah, I think I forwarded it through an email.
It may have been one of them that I just don't recognize the name of.
So I just wanted to clarify that our, much black and white, and somebody can say immediately yes or no, and then there's a lot that is extremely gray. And the town, basically, if you wanted to pursue something that has never been done, and that's what some municipalities have done. Now, again, I'm speaking as someone who does not have a clue what it is that you may wish to pursue.